Alright, Gamer Bears, it is time for another episode of Unused Content in Games. And today, now that we're done with X3, I'm moving on to Mega Man X4 over here, and my personal favorite of the Mega Man games, period, regardless of which Mega Man series we're talking about here. And fun fact about this game was actually developed alongside Mega Man 8, so some things from that game will be brought up in this little episode as well. But before we truly begin, if you like content like this about unused content games, please consider subscribing to the channel. It's for free. You can always change your mind later on. Anyways, let us start off today with some prototype information. Starting with the April 29th, 1997 prototype build. A Saturn, because X4 was originally released for both the Sega Saturn and the PS1. A Saturn build presumably used for magazine previews and or showcases. So let's take a look at what they got over here. Alright, Rockman X4 as it's known in Japan, a sample game or version of the Saturn game, presumably sent from magazine preview, we just read that. Alright, some general differences. After the Capcom logo, the text Rockman X4 show version displays. The title screen animation is the same as the international version, lacking X and 0. The title screen has an additional text sample written below. Both the title screen and the character select lack any sort of sound. It's probably likely because it wasn't made yet. It's not possible to pause the game, the pause wasn't made yet. No story elements are present, likely to minimize spoilers, makes sense. The weapon get screen hasn't been implemented yet. Beating a Maverick will skip the stage clear jingle. Maybe it has been made yet and I guess they always skipped it just to make things a bit faster in testing. Selecting a stage will cause the character to skip their exiting animation. Getting a game over will cause a thank you for playing screen to appear, after which the game resets back to the title screen. Although Jet Stingray appears alongside the player during his stage, the actual boss fight hasn't been implemented in yet. Alright, we have Maverick Hunter HQ as well as the stage select. Alright, 3 of the Maverick stages, Cyber Peacock, Storm Owl, and Split Mushroom, have a now making symbol and cannot be selected, while Magma Dragoon and Jet Stingray have a strange silhouette portrait but can be selected. Double Slash Iris, Biscarroll Iris by the way, are missing from the spot where they normally are, likely because their sprites hadn't been made yet at the time. But here's a closer look at that. Got these weird placeholder looking sprites over here for their portraits. And then now I'm making because I guess they didn't want to use the placeholder sprites here. Whatever. The lighting's also a bit different too. You can tell because the light over here is yellow in this build, but in the final game it's like a green color. And here's what it looks like in the final game. With the map in different continental areas, each area happens to be on as well. Something similar Mega Man 8 did with the planet Earth. But that's a discussion for another day. Alright, music. The music in the Sega Saturn release of X4 and its prototype is stored in form of .bin files, as opposed to the .xa files format. Furthermore, the files in this prototype include varying file modification dates, hinting at the rough time frame in which they were implemented into X4. Our opening stage, with this code over here, it was fall of 1996, the first song I composed right after I entered the Mega Man X4's development team, and was X's theme song, the same one that can be heard in the opening stage, from Toshihiko Horiyama. The files of the stage are dated October 23rd, 1996. This aligns with the statements made by the game's composer, Toshihiko Horiyama. His involvement in the game began in fall of 1996, as shown there, and X's opening stage theme was the first song he had created. This version of the track is identical to the final. Origion ST-12. The boss theme of Sky Lagoon. I love the Sky Lagoon song, by the way, but we're not talking about that. Boss is the second oldest theme present on the disc, dating November 16th, 1996. It is also identical to the final. For some reason, the prototype has 8 more copies of the same track, all assigned to the planned main stages. These copies are named ST0X_0B0, where X represents the stage number. Could represent a variable as well, but, just like Mega Man X himself. Number 128. Alright, Web Spider stage. Here's let me read this text here first. The version of the track present on the disc is dated February 18th, 1997. It's identical, albeit less polished, with some different mixing and less reverb. Like with the Origion boss theme, this track was copied over to the other stage music slots. As of this prototype, it's also present under ST06 and ST07, the slot for Cyber Peacocks and Storm Owl stages respectively. So here's the unused version of Web Spider stage. Alright, Web Spider stage. Here's a look at the stage. The version of the track is identical, albeit less polished, with some different mixing and less reverb. Like with the Origion boss theme, this track was copied over to the other stage music slots. As of this prototype, it's also present under ST06 and ST07, the slot for Cyber Peacocks and Storm Owl stages respectively. So here's the unused version of Web Spider stage. Enough of that. Alright, sound. The ready and warning sounds haven't been implemented yet, likely haven't been made yet. The stage select uses the weapon get music track as a placeholder. Unfinished stages. Use these codes on this level select screen to load into a specific level and selection. This code here will give you just level select. 0 will give you Air City, most likely an early version of Sky Lagoon. 01 will give you Jungle or Spider Stage. 02 will give you the Snow Base Frost Walrus Stage. 03 will give you Bio Laboratory Split Mushroom Stage. 04 will give you Volcano Magma Dragoon Stage. 05 will give you Marine Base Jet Stingray Stage. 06 will give you Cyberspace Cyber Peacock Stage. 07 will give you Air Force Storm Owl Stage. 08 will give you Military Train, that being Slash Beast Stage. 09 will give you Memorial Hall, which is near the end of the game. OA will give you Spaceport, and then OB will give you Final Weapon, being the final area of the game. This code will give you the level area select. 00 will give you Area 1, 01 will give you Area 2. When available, though, it kind of is redundant with these two stages up here, but whatever. And this code will give you level area room select when available. Alright, with that being said, why don't we take a look at this here YouTube vid for a second. Early version of Cyber Peacock stage. This video is over 10 minutes long, so I'm definitely going to skip a few parts just to make things faster. It looks mostly the same, just without... Well, the background, I'd say, is a little different, but there's no enemies. I kind of like this background, actually. I like the little space effect they got over here. And the effect where X going into this teleporter hasn't been implemented yet, it looks like. Alright, let's skip a little bit. I guess I skipped a little too far. This is room 2. Yeah, the background still is a little different. Let's skip ahead just a little farther. We'll go back. Alright, that might have been an unused area for maybe a extra life or something. Let's speed ahead just a little bit more. Alright, these unused platforms that we don't see in the final game. At least to my memory. It's clearly supposed to be a little slight speedrunning section where all those yellow spheres are around. And once again, they haven't been implemented in yet. I think this is just likely to test out the different areas of Cyber Peacock stage. Just to make sure everything looks alright before they place the enemies and the songs and all that stuff. Alright, that's clearly an early version of the gravity switch mechanic. I think there's more of these floating platforms in the air, which I don't think we see those in the final game. Alright, just moving on a little faster from that. Alright, so they didn't place any of those floating platforms yet. Alright, an early version of Split Mushroom Stage. Now, the winding staircase has definitely been implemented. Now they have enemies here. Got this little rock throwing animation as well. I don't remember that in the final game. This boss fight looks mostly the same, though the background seems a little different. Alright, the second winding staircase. Let's just skip a little farther. Alright, the split mushroom boss fight hadn't been implemented in yet. This stage is interesting. Huh. Early version of Memorial Hall. I think we're supposed to fight Colonel. That background is actually kind of interesting. I think I like this more than the background we actually get in the final game. Alright, and this is just, you can tell this is clearly unfinished. Like, what the hell is this thing floating over here? Early version of Spaceport. Yeah, that background is choppy as hell. God damn, it looks like it came out of a SNES game. Actually, maybe even an NES game. Actually, no. More accurately, I think that looks like it came out of an Atari game. Yeah. And you're clearly not supposed to be able to go up there. Once again, no enemies implemented. Because they also have excess sprite done in this game, they likely didn't have zero sprite done at this point. Jeez, really long wall. If this wasn't an endgame stage, that could be a decent spot for a heart tank. I mean, if you have the patience to even go up that damn wall, but yeah, he would be decently rewarded. There's another unused area. An early version of the final weapon, it looks like. Still one of my favorite stages in a Mega Man game. Mostly because of the song in it, but too bad we won't be hearing that here. Those platforms once again looks like they came out of an Atari game, same with the background. And he's dead. That's the end of that. Moving on to the Biolaboratory. Split Mushroom stage is mostly complete, minus a few enemy types. Teleporters and screen transitions work, and the mini-boss is implemented. As we saw in that. At Cyberspace, Cyber Peacock stage is a heavily unfinished state. The tiles, though looking quite polished, is almost entirely different from what appears in the final game. Area 1 is completely empty, and teleporters do not work. Area 2 is also empty and includes no objects, though the switches that flip the levels are implemented. Here's what that looks like. And here's the other image. Alright, Air Force. Storm Owl stage is somewhat complete. Screen transitions don't work. At the Memorial Hall, Colonel's Battlefield uses a different redder palette. The background uses a farther perspective, showing more detail of the surrounding area. Lighting effects are unimplemented. And here's what that looks like. Spaceport. Spaceport is completely empty. Using a basic tile set and a stretchy background, the nose of the airship sits stationary in the background, awkwardly following the camera. Very awkwardly. Looks freaking nasty, too. Almost looks like something you'd see in X6, actually. Alright, final weapon. The first area of final weapon is entirely skeletal, using only a placeholder tile set to map out the level. It is otherwise completely empty. And here's a closer look. Very similar to a lot of unused debug areas in Mega Man 8 as well. Our Area 2 uses a broken tile set, seemingly in transition of the placeholder set used in Area 1. A simplistic space background is in place, but it shifts diagonally off screen until upon start. Alright, here's what that looks like. Alright, and pause menu. The pause menu is disabled in this demo, but can be accessed with this code right here. It's disabled for good reason, though, as is very unfinished looking in the prototype. All weapon icons are unfinished, as is X and Zero, whom use the wrong palettes, though the option does have the correct palette, unlike the May 8th build. The weapons were also rearranged from the final, or for the final, with minor name modifications. If only I could read that. Alright, prototype name for the Giga Crush Temporary, like that was the name for that special attack in X2 and X3. And then the name, or actually, those name have been in X2. I don't think X3 had anything like that. Anyways, in the final game, the Nova Strike, a really cool name, Thunder Web instead of Lightning Web. The V Blast Temporary into Twin Slashers, which again is a better name, I'd argue. Alright, here's a closer look at the prototype pause screen, which, yeah, does look pretty unfinished. Again, looks like it came out of a SNES game, not a Sega Saturn or PS1 game. Oh, that being said, in the next episode, we shall move on to the May 8th, 1997 build, which has a lot of really interesting things in it. And apparently also contains some demos of Mega Man 8 and Battle Chase, the racing Mega Man game. One of the few Mega Man games at the time of making this video I have yet to play, actually. But anyways, if y'all enjoyed this edition of Unused Content and Games and you want to see more, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And considering it's the course of the day of all the unused content that we went over so far, what would you have liked to see in the final game and why? Me personally, like I mentioned before, just this background to Cyber Peacock stage and this background to Memorial Hall would be pretty cool in my opinion. Just something small like that. But anyways, with that being said, thank you all for watching and have a berrific day. See you in part 2.